It's Monday. So glad so many of you are here today. We have a very focused show, but we're covering three major topics. Let's start with the top. Donald Trump threatened all of the members of the January 6th committee. This was that bipartisan committee organized in the House by Nancy Pelosi, for which Donald Trump had the opportunity to recommend Republicans, and via the ranking member in the House, and they chose. This was when it was Kevin McCarthy. They chose no one, and so Nancy Pelosi went ahead and selected Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney as the Republican representatives, and then I believe there are seven others. We'll go through that from the Democratic Party. This was an amazing committee who was able to bring forth testimony that we had not heard before, including from Cassidy Hutchinson. This was the bombshell report, as well as ongoing hearings, where we were able to actually see, minute by minute, what happened when Donald Trump whipped up his followers, invited them down to the Capitol, kept spouting the big lie that he had not lost, and incited violence, leading to the death of one of those insurrectionists, as well as many Capitol Police officers, plus severe traumatic injuries. We saw this footage, right? So now that Donald Trump is about to resume his presidency, now he will begin his second term. He is now threatening, and he did so on Meet the Press yesterday with Kristen Welker. He is now threatening to have every single member of the January 6th committee jailed. Let's play that clip. Okay. Are you ready for it? I know it's early in the morning, but we have to do it. Here we go.
And Cheney was behind it. And so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
Okay. So he's saying that he is not going to direct Kash Patel, should he become the FBI director, or Pam Bondi, should she become the attorney general, that he's not going to direct them to do that. Do you think that he needs to literally tell them to do it? He's saying it on Meet the Press on NBC, one of the most watched Sunday morning news shows. You don't think they get the message? He is choosing people to nominate who will or have already done his bidding. Do we need to refresh our memories that Pam Bondi, when she was the Attorney General of Florida, ended up stepping away from the possibility of working with the New York AG to working with the Manhattan District Attorney regarding the fake university. Remember, this is a case where Donald Trump ended up settling in 2016 between the time he was elected and 2017 when he took office. That's called the interregnum. He ended up settling for $25 million for his university defrauding people. And most of those people were either New York based or Florida based. And Pam Bondi was offered to participate. And then she went silent. And then she did not end up bringing a case or joining the case, but she got a very, very fat check for her election campaign from Donald Trump's business. That is who Pam Bondi is. Do we have any doubt that she will hold back on pursuing the people that Donald Trump perceives to be his enemies? The enemy within? Who else is going to enforce that? Okay, so that's what happened on Meet the Press yesterday. And I want to tell you, I'm not going to go through every single thing that Donald Trump said, every lie he expressed, because my focus and my expertise, as you know, is offering you fresh or hot takes on fresh legal and business news, right? Legal, political, and business news, sorry. And my expertise is in that sort of intersection between money and power. So I tend to focus on areas that involve corruption or white collar crime or other areas that touch on my research and writing or teaching. So I won't cover everything, but I promise you to talk about the corruption and the money stuff and anything specifically legal. So let's go to the next thing. And this is also, I'll warm you up. Let's talk about healthcare. There is nothing apparently more important to the American people than the rising cost of healthcare, the gouging by insurance companies, and so much so that we have seen little to no sympathy for the murdered, the gunned down CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. And in fact, we have seen the opposite. We have seen a flood of snarky comments, and he deserved it. And I'm not saying this, right? I'm opposed to all kinds of violence, period. And we have seen people even kind of lionizing this unknown assassin to the point where there was a lookalike contest in New York for him, and where people are looking at him as a vigilante of the ilk of the American revolutionaries who finally stood up to tyranny. That is where we are with how upset people are about the cost of healthcare. And part of the problem there is lack of enforcement of the law, as we know. But the other problem is we took a step, and it was a good one, to have Obamacare as an intermediate step for people to get insurance. And now we really do need, I call it Medicare for more. You could call it affordable universal health care. The reason why I like Medicare for more instead of Medicare for all is it's not that I like alliteration. I actually believe in making these steps. First, expand Medicare group by group, because you can't turn a ship overnight. And I think that makes a lot of sense. However, it's not just rhetoric. What is Donald Trump planning and promising to do? He wants to kill Obamacare. He has said that since his first election. And he keeps saying, I remember there was a time when he said he would do it in 30 days, that he had a plan. And so what is he talking about now? He's ready to take office again. And where is he now? I think you know what this is going to reveal, but this is what he told Kristen Welker yesterday with absolutely no irony, shame, or self-reflection.
Against. Nobody understands it.
Sir, you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking, because Obamacare stinks. It's lousy. There are better answers. If we come up with a better answer, I would present that answer to Democrats and to everybody else, and I do something about it. But until we have that, or until they can approve it, but we're not going to go through the big deal. I am the one that saved Obamacare.
What?
I will say, and I did the right thing. I could have done the more political thing and killed it. And all I had to do is starve it to death.
You did try to have your Justice Department effectively kill it, though,
No.
sir.
Kill it from a legal standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, I made it work.
In your
He meant to say the word fiscal, not physical, fiscal standpoint. So he understands, and that the way you can kill a lawfully enacted congressional program is to starve it, he says. Well, I mean, you got to starve it through appropriations and so on. But at any rate, Donald Trump claims that he could have killed Obamacare, but it stinks, but he kept it alive. And now he's going to kill it, but he only has concepts of a plan. We're going to get to, in a moment, after we go through a couple more things that he discussed with Kristen Welker, we are going to talk about another victim of insurance company greed and corruption. Okay, I promised you that we're going to do this every day until at some point, at least throughout the year, will end sooner if the assassin, I shouldn't call him an assassin, if the person who gunned down Brian Thompson is found. But until then, we are going to be looking at those victims. Now, let me pivot. In addition to Donald Trump talking about wanting to get rid of healthcare that millions of people have. And by the way, I just want to make this clear. I think a lot of people in this show know. You may be thinking to yourself, Obamacare doesn't mean anything to me because I get my healthcare from my insurance company. You know, a lot of people associate Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act with the ability to buy insurance if you don't get it through your employer. Like if you, are an independent contractor or what have you, right? Or you're between jobs, or you're a student, or whatever, or you work either in the gig economy, or you don't have any full-time job, or you're in a place where this is not required by your employer because it's too small of an employer to provide you with insurance. So a lot of people got there, have the benefit of being able to buy their insurance, via Obamacare. My older brother, who runs his own law practice, an amazing consumer law practice in Detroit. If you have a bad car, he is the lemon law expert in the entire state of Michigan. If you have any other car issues, he knows all the consumer protection lawyers across the country who specialize in this. He does more than that, but he's lovely, brilliant, my big brother. But anyway, he gets his insurance through the platforms as a result of the Affordable Care Act. Now, you may say, so what? That's not me. And I might say, so what? That's not me. I get my insurance through my employer. But guess what? It is me. Because what Obamacare did and what the Affordable Care Act did, in addition to offering people the ability to buy affordable insurance when it wasn't provided to them through their employer, is it ended something that the insurance companies did, which was to either overcharge or block you from getting coverage if you had what's called a pre-existing condition. In other words, either you couldn't get covered at all, or they would refuse to cover any losses that were associated, or any claims associated with your pre-existing condition. And you may think to yourself, so what? I'm a healthy person. Well, guess what? You won't always be. And the whole purpose of insurance is to create a diverse pool of people so that the premiums that come in, that are paid in, are in excess of what needs to be paid out if you should have a claim. Now, let me just tell you, pre-existing conditions include something like asthma. Pre-existing conditions include cancer. Pre-existing conditions include so many different things. And as an effect of prior to the Affordable Care Act, people could not move jobs if there were a better opportunity to either earn more money or be closer to family or advance in their career. And that meant good companies with new business ideas couldn't hire the best people they wanted because some of the best people were stuck at employers because of this pre-existing condition rule. So what does Donald Trump have in mind? He has a concept of a plan. That should not fly with anyone. Now let's add to what he's also talking about. Can we talk about the tariffs? Donald Trump, who claims that his favorite claim was tariff, still denies that a tariff is a tax on imported goods paid for by American businesses, the cost of which is passed on to consumers. That is what it is. Now let's listen to Welker try to push him again on how tariffs will affect the economy.
I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border, and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries.
Groceries.
Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries.
Hold on. Who uses the word groceries? Doesn't anyone say, I have to go buy groceries? I've got to go to the grocery store? Oh, no. That would be someone who's actually been to the supermarket, been to a grocery store. All of his meals are hand delivered to him on a flippin' silver platter from McDonald's or made for him. I actually wonder whether Donald has ever prepared any food for himself other than reaching his grubby, tiny little hand into a bag of Cheetos. I don't know. But the word groceries is common parlance among us little serfs, Donald. Let me continue.
Buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
I want to pause here because.
Okay. She wants to pause because actually, then she asks him, what about, and I don't have this full clip. She says, what about tariffs? Won't they bring the prices up? That's what all the economists say. And Donald says in response, well, there are no guarantees. I mean, she said, can you guarantee prices won't go up? He said, well, there are no guarantees. Okay. Let's now move on to another legal issue. And these both relate to immigration. And then we are going to pivot to talk about victims of healthcare. Before we get back, healthcare greed, before we get back to his cabinet, Syria, and Crazy Town. Okay. Donald Trump, as you know, is obsessed with demonizing some immigrants. And let's listen to what he had to say about his plan, because there are, of course, families and children. You know, we know that he and Stephen Miller have talked about, and the 2025 Project 2025 have talked about rounding up millions of people, maybe even 10 million of people, and putting them in internment camps, essentially concentration camps before they're deported. So Welker asks him about that. Let's play it.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are.
You're talking about separation?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two aspects to this. Your border czar, Tom Homan, said they can be deported together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep the, well, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, you know, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal, and they show the woman, and she could stay.
Oh, my God. A wonderful young woman with a criminal? That would be anyone you are dating on the side right now, Donald Trump. But let's continue.
By the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country, and then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job, and you have.
Did you hear what he was saying there? That someone who can be here lawfully. And did I hear that correctly? A mixed family? Let's just listen to that at the beginning. He's talking about deporting people who are here lawfully? Let's listen.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are.
You're talking about separation.
Okay. So the children were born here, so they have birthright citizenship. And they have the legal right to be here. But he's talking about deporting people, children. And this could be children, you know, babies, teenagers. They could be in high school. They could be beginning college. And he's talking about deporting them, regardless of the fact that they are allowed to be here lawfully. Or the other choice is separating them, but he doesn't want to do that. So he'd rather violate the Constitution. So now let's pivot to how he plans to do that. He wants to end birthright citizenship on day one. And of course, Lindsey Graham said he should do that on day one, but of course, follow the Constitution will need an amendment. Those are contradictory things. You don't show up on January 20th and get a constitutional amendment that will allow you to end birthright citizenship or a Supreme Court ruling. That won't happen. So they're just going to let him go with it. And then, of course, lawsuits will ensue. So let me first play for you what he said. And then I want to share with you what the experts, including Sherlyn Ifill, have explained. And I know I've told you and I've read before from a piece that I wrote. I don't know if it was in the Washington Monthly or another piece years ago about the fact that we actually have a Supreme Court case ensuring birthright citizenship, meaning if you are born in the United States, you have citizenship regardless of where your parents are from. Of course, the exception is if you're the child of a diplomat who is here. That doesn't actually work, but that is also based on Supreme Court precedent. Let's play this.
Ask you about some of your other promises on this topic. You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
You know, we're the only country that has it. Do you know?
Don't you wish that Kristen Welker had someone in her ear or somewhere in her brain that knew that we are not the only country with birthright citizenship at all? I can't even count the number of countries with birthright citizenship, but you go on, Donald.
If somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need to, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first.
Okay. So there we have it. I'm at the end of the clips from the Welker interview. Executive action. You just can't violate the Constitution that way. And let me share with you what, here's something that Sherilyn Ifill had to say. Let me share my screen with you. So you just know this. Let's be smart about this. Okay. And this is on my Blue Sky thread. Let me make sure you're seeing this. Okay. Let me blow it up for you. So we have Sherilyn Ifill says, please arm yourself with knowledge. And by the way, I'm popping this open for you. Sherilyn Ifill is a civil rights lawyer, democracy warrior, dedicated to racial justice and equality. She was former president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Okay. Please arm yourself with knowledge. Birthright citizenship is not a policy choice. It is a constitutional imperative under the 14th Amendment. It can no more be signed away by executive order than the First Amendment. Okay. Now, let's also look at my friend Chara Torres Spelisi, law professor from Florida, as well as my friend Katie Fang, who is a commentator, has her own television show, noon on Saturdays on MSNBC. She's also a lawyer, and she quotes for us the 14th Amendment. Okay, so this is not something he can do by executive order or on day one. But the question is, will he try? What is he going to do at the outset to deport people? And the other thing, let me just say what he will do by executive order. We have this thing called temporary protected status. And that is the status that the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio have. He will rescind that and send them home rather than admit that he's a complete idiot and a joke for repeating the stupid rumor that they were an incorrect rumor that they were eating cats and dogs there. I know we laughed a lot about it because it's idiocy, but he's going to try to save face in that way. Now, let us talk again and update you about the CEO and who was killed and gunned down. Let me just share this with you. This is the guy, Brian Thompson, was gunned down in New York, right? This is a photo of that. I'm going to remove that. That is you're aware of that. And I think you're also aware that there is a reward being offered for this person. He's no longer in New York. What we know is that they believe he got on some bus. I should say that he went to, they believe, to a bus station. They know that the bus he arrived on in New York days, I don't know how many days, but days before the shooting, originated in Atlanta. It doesn't mean he got on the bus in Atlanta, so they're trying to find him. We also know that his backpack was apparently found with Monopoly money in it. He is definitely sending a message. The bullet casing said something like deny, depose, or something else like, I forgot what they said. I think it's deny, depose, and defend, which is part of the language that insurance companies use. Depose has to do with in litigation. I think it's, but anyway, it's usually delay, deny, defend. But he had to depose, whatever. He's creative. Again, it's shocking that it's come to this, and this is part of now the class war. And I find it frightening because, the thing about people feeling permission to just kill people they believe have done them wrong, even if it is someone who's the head of a healthcare company, is complete and utter anarchy and chaos. A friend of mine once said, once you start down this path, it's like a potato chip. You can't just stop at one. We need to end this. Okay. And at the same time, I promised you that Brian Thompson is not the only victim here. Everyone who has been denied healthcare coverage unfairly and as a result died or suffered unnecessarily is a victim. So this is where I want to share with you something that I found appalling, but is really important for you to know. Appalling, but illuminating. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share right here so I don't have to cut and paste it. This is what I have called an essential read. And I'm not talking about this story here below. I'm talking about, I'm going to click on this. This is, here we go. Daniel Quain Hollister. I think you can see this now. This is essential reading. And this is story time. And I would like to share with you his story here. And I'm not going to read every piece of it, but the bottom line is, sadly, his mother died of cancer in 2005. And he believes the cause was what his insurance company had done, her insurance company had done 12 years earlier. And this is something you need to know. So basically, she had affordable health insurance plan through some company called FHP, he says. And she was having some symptoms. And a doctor sent her to a gynecologist, but the healthcare company wouldn't authorize that because she had seen one recently. But her doctor wasn't concerned because they did a pap smear test, which looks, I don't know if you know this, but it looks at the cells on your cervix to help diagnose whether you might have cancer. And the doctor said the results were normal and sent her home. But a few months later, and by the way, since the 90s, women are instructed to get a test annually, which is more frequently than today. And so, she got another a few months later, after her annual physical, she got another pap smear. And again, she was told it was normal. But then, just to add to this, and I'm gonna make this smaller so you don't have to stare at this here. But, and let me just actually stop. Let me stop this screen share because you can't really see that. You can go to my Blue Sky, but let me just tell you what happened next. So his mother gets married to, he got engaged to the man who became his stepfather. And her fiance was an electrical engineer. And Daniel said, he had little tolerance for nonsense. So he heard this story. And he knew his fiance, Daniel's mom, was still suffering. So he decided that he wanted a second opinion, and that he decided he wouldn't want to pay himself out of his own pocket, not through insurance. So they went to a doctor outside that insurance network, and she was given a pap smear, and it came back with highly abnormal results, indicating cancer. And so the doctor then, her doctor had her immediately undergo a procedure, which confirmed that she had cervical cancer. And they didn't let this go, right? They wanted to know why this happened. And so she asked for the pathology reports, right? Because the doctors had said those pap smears were fine. They refused. They said, we don't know where they are. Okay. So what did they do? They sued so they could get this information. And when they were at trial, the insurance company again was asked for the reports so that independent doctors could review it. But according to Daniel, the insurance company again claimed they could not find her original pap smear reports. And so the judge ordered the insurance company to either produce it by the weekend, according to Daniel, or else the judge would rule in favor of his mother. And suddenly the reports materialized. After that, once these original reports materialized, independent pathologists reviewed those pap smear tests, the 2 that we talked about, in court, or 3, because she had one they said was normal. She got another one immediately, and then an annual one after that. They unanimously concluded that for nearly 2 years, the test results had not been normal, that they had been abnormal. And while they didn't confirm cancer, she should have had that procedure to see whether she had cervical cancer. And it was during the trial that they admitted that anyway, it was bad. The insurance companies ended up settling quickly. But what they found out is during trials that the insurance company decided that given that there were a certain percentage of false positives with abnormal results, that they decided they were going to ignore them to save money. And of course, none of this was in writing, but it came out at trial. What does this mean? I don't know what it means. It means that you need to have, I'm glad that my doctor, my gyno is independent, and I trust that the lab she sends reports out to, but I'm going to tell her about this just to make sure that she's not using a lab or that I don't have insurance that would do the same thing. So this is horrific. The bottom line is, had she been diagnosed 2 years earlier, she might have had her life saved. It could have been very early cancer, and her cervix could have been removed well before it spread. But instead, he lost his mother. Now, I promised you that I would do that, and it was important to me to share with you people's lives who have been lost due to decisions by insurance companies. Now, let us now pivot to Donald Trump's cabinet before we get to Syria. And thank you. I'm seeing these nice, oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet. Thank you, Ada. And I think thank you, Jaroslav. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it, especially on a Monday morning when you have other things you could do, like getting excited for the week or just hiding under your blankets. Okay, let's talk about Donald's nominees. The cabinet picks. It's not going so well. Let's play.
Trump has put together a very good team. Marco Rubio, our friend, John Ratcliffe, Mike Waltz is awesome. We got a good team. Pam Bundy's going to sail through. Cash is going to make it. Pete Hegseth's been a friend for a long time. He's going to have to answer some questions, but we're going to not knock him out because of anonymous reporting. You got to, swear under oath you saw things, then we'll evaluate the credibility testimony. Like,
you have to swear under oath that you saw things. You mean there has to be someone in the room where Pete Hegseth allegedly raped a woman and where he settled and she signed an NDA? So she's the only person other than Pete who could testify under oath, but she can't? Tell me how that's ever fair. Let's continue. He said you have to testify under oath. And what does he liken it to? Let's listen.
Testimony like we did with Kavanaugh. But
like we did with Kavanaugh? Well, that was a setup. Remember his friend Mark Judge, or whatever his name was somehow, sent off somewhere or absconded somewhere with all the evidence, right? Yeah, like that. God forbid that Hegseth does not step down. Now, more on Pete Hegseth again, the man who is entirely unqualified to lead the Department of Defense, to be Secretary of Defense. And not only is he unqualified, but he's manifestly dangerous, has an alcohol problem, apparently, has, allegations of rape and repeated sexual harassment, Islamophobia, and the desire to engage in a Christian crusade. But other than that, seems like a good guy. Let's listen to Mark Wayne Mullen be questioned by Jake Tapper about the problem with someone who has a serious drinking problem on the job.
Is when you're talking about drinking at 10 in the morning, that's a drinking problem. Now, it doesn't mean that there should be a stigma.
Then there's a lot of politicians that have a drinking problem, Jake.
Yes, of course. But I guess my question is,
yeah, and then there's probably a lot of media that has a drinking problem too. And now I don't drink. I haven't tasted alcohol in many years, and never have drank at all in my life really. And so I really don't understand that. But there's a lot of alcohol that flows through Washington D.C. on a regular basis, and I wouldn't say that people are alcoholics or they have a drinking problem because of that. I don't see it at all. I don't see that being a problem, and I really wish that the media would move on and start focusing on what he can bring to the Secretary as Secretary of Defense, because.
I mean, it's astonishing to me how low the bar is. This man, Pete Hegseth, needs to withdraw his nomination. And if he doesn't, I will look forward to commenting on the disastrous hearings that will ensue, unless Donald Trump decides to force a recess, which I don't believe he's going to have. I don't think the math adds up for him. So we shall see on that. Now we have a bit more. At least there is somebody who is, to some degree, acknowledging what's going on here. So let's talk about this. The first nominee that Donald Trump put forward who had to back out of the nomination, which was a rebuke of Donald Trump, was Matt Gaetz, the congressman from Florida, who is or was under investigation for a variety of things that we have talked about, including sexually assaulting or raping a minor due to lack of consent, drug use, and so on. And that report should come out, and yet the House has voted not to release it. It's astonishing to me that it has not leaked. When Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House, was asked about it, here's what he had to say, still defending Donald Trump and slamming Matt Gaetz. Now, you should remember that it is Kevin McCarthy who, when he was Speaker of the House, approved the investigation of Matt Gaetz, approved the ethics committee doing this. And that is why Matt Gaetz pushed him out of the speaker position when he, at the beginning of the last Congress. So let's, at the beginning of 2020, I'm trying to think of it, would have been 2021 when he was pushed out. Okay.
What is your opinion or reaction to President Trump initially?
I'm sorry, it wasn't 2021. I think it was 2022. I'm getting confused by my years. Or it was 2023. I'm trying to think of when the House, it would have been 2023 because that was when the new Congress came in. Here we go. Let's listen to this.
What is your opinion or reaction to President Trump initially naming Matt Gaetz as the AG?
Well, no one thought that would pass. I blame Matt Gaetz for lying to the president about his ethics report. People know that that's why he made the motion against me. People know that's why he's not capable of even staying in Congress. He needed an excuse to resign because the ethics report would be done in a couple days, and that's unfortunate. But it's a better Congress today of where they're going forward.
Well, you just...
So he's defending Donald Trump as if Donald didn't know the situation. But at the end of the day, we need that report. Okay, guys. Now, before we get to Crazy Town, yes, I am following the events in Syria and South Korea. I am not a foreign policy expert, and I will not pretend to be one. But instead, let me comment on both in a similar way, which is about the excesses and political corruption. Obviously, I was a little bit shocked by some of the news media describing what happened in South Korea with Yoon. What I thought particularly amusing is that the way one newspaper described Yoon attempting to declare martial law before the people hit the streets and rejected that. One newspaper referred to it as his martial law misstep, which I find to be a really probably one of the largest understatements that I have seen about authoritarianism and political corruption in my lifetime. And it's really hard to describe it other than this is what I put, I think, on Blue Sky. I said that Well, let me just read you let me pull this up for you because you can see what we're talking about better than I can entirely describe it. And here we go. So we have this right here. I'm going to back out so you can see the shot better. So we have this South Korea's president avoids impeachment after a martial law misstep. A vote to impeach President Yoon Suk Yeol failed after a ruling party boycott meant ballots cast failed to pass the minimum threshold in the National Assembly. However, martial law misstep. And to me, martial law misstep is the iconic, unironic, understated alliteration for these dark days. I mean, can you imagine martial law misstep? But that is where we are. Now, as for Assad, Bashar al-Assad in Syria, yes, his regime has been toppled. His family dynasty, which has ruled for 50 years, has ended. And there might be chaos ahead, but it was joyful to see a tyrant fall. And now he is in Russia, where he has, I suppose, asylum and will not be able to be extradited. In the days to come, I remain hopeful for a more democratic Syria. But what I found the most touching, let me just say, what we found the most touching is a twofold. One, even as Donald Trump thinks he is going to bring an iron fist to the United States, that we have seen pushback in South Korea, and we have seen a regime topple in Syria. And in the case of Syria, yet another friend of Vladimir Putin. So I'm sure Donald Trump is watching. Has he learned his lesson? No, I'm not Susan Collins. He will never learn his lesson. He is incapable of doing so, because the lesson he is learning is the one that reinforces for him that he can do whatever he wants, which is what he will believe until he breathes his last breath. Now, let's now talk about Crazy Town. And I think this is a stunner for me. So let's talk about Crazy Town. Crazy Town is something related to the most crazy, the most insane police misconduct that I think I have seen, in my lifetime. So let's look at this. I'm hoping you can see this. Oh, good. This headline is, this is the kind of thing when I looked at it, not only was I shocked, but I thought this is perfect for the show because I know some legal doctrine and history that will help you with this. So here's a headline: Broward County to vacate convictions for people who bought crack cocaine made by the sheriff's office. This came out Friday. Headline from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I mean, guys, can you believe this? And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw the link in the chat, and then I'm going to make this so I can actually talk to you. Let's throw this in the chat. So if you're following along, look at that. Okay. Let me tell you what this says. For 3 years, the Broward County, Florida Sheriff's Office produced its own crack cocaine so it could sell it to people that deputies would then arrest for buying crack cocaine. Holy Walter White, what is going on here? It was a practice the Florida State Supreme Court repeatedly described as outrageous in its 1993 ruling that such reverse stings violated an individual's right to due process. More than 30 years later, though, a routine audit of documents found hundreds of those arrests and convictions are still on the books as part of people's criminal records. Okay, so the idea here is they're going to finally vacate those convictions. Now, I need to talk with you about why this is crazy in a way that no one else is going to be reporting to you. So let me add a little of our jingle, and then I'll tell you. Okay. You may say to yourself, well, that was a good outcome, right? This dated back to 1993, that back in that time is when it was going on. These sheriffs were manufacturing crack cocaine, and then they were enticing people, and you might call it entrapment. And we'll get into that in a second. They were enticing people to buy the drug. And when they bought the drug, they would bust them. Now, let's just be really clear. When Florida's courts said that that was unconstitutional, it was under the Florida state constitution. And the word outrageous and the words outrageous and due process come up. So what's good to know is a state like Florida believes that when police officers or the government engage in conduct that is outrageous, I mean, I think we can say outrageous in this instance, this type of thing, that it's unlawful and these convictions cannot stand, right? And this is because of due process under the Florida Constitution, that it's not considered to be treating people with the right sort of, I guess it's hard to describe due process, but that you're not supposed to take away someone's life, liberty, or property without due process. And they thought this violated that. Outrageous conduct by the government was in conflict. Okay, what you need to know is that a year earlier, in 1992, the United States Supreme Court ruled in a case called Jacobson versus United States about the doctrine of entrapment. And just so you know, at the federal level, there is no due process limit as a result of this case and earlier. There's no outrageous conduct defense. If this happened at the federal level, this wouldn't be the same story. So let me tell you why I know about this. I happen to write my law school third-year note about Jacobson versus United States. And I happen to have it here right for you. I will give you a link to oyez.org in the chat so that you can know about this. But the bottom line was, under Jacobson versus the United States, the Supreme Court ruled that in order to raise an entrapment defense, the way the defense works is a case against you will be thrown out. You can defend even if you commit a crime as part of a police sting operation or FBI sting operation, I should say. If at the time the FBI or the cops essentially first approached you, asking you to commit the crime, we look at whether you were already predisposed. So let's take this case from Florida, for example. In the case of Florida, if this was like DEA agents at the federal level back in 1993 who were trying to go out on the street and sell crack cocaine that they made to people who were already addicts, there would be no entrapment defense at the federal level. And in fact, there is no outrageous conduct protection at the federal level. In the case of Jacobson versus United States, this is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard of. The U.S. government was creating child pornography as part of a sting operation called Operation Looking Glass. And they were sending pornography to people who had never looked for it before, or to mailing lists. I'm sorry, if someone bought like teenage gay porn and didn't think it was one time and didn't think it was, and this is what Jacobson had done, didn't think it was going to be child pornography. They just thought it was, I don't know what they thought it was. The same thing as a romantic comedy, who knows, with teenagers, whatever. Someone who did that one time, which is what Jacobson did. He was put on a mailing list because he purchased one magazine once. And then the FBI went after him the federal government went after him that with the child pornography they made and distributed. I shouldn't say they made it. They didn't film children. They took images of children and sent them out, which is already considered to create harm every time it happens. So they took existing images and sent out pornography in a barrage of mailings to people. And Jacobson was able to get his conviction overturned because the U.S. Supreme Court decided 5-4 that he was not predisposed at the time they started targeting him with their sting operation. I am not defending people who buy child pornography. I think it hurts people. And I also think a government operation peddling child pornography is absolutely outrageous. And I wish that the United States had, just like Florida has, that concept of outrageous conduct. Other countries have it, like Canada. Anyway, so where does this get you? That gets you to crazy town. The fact that in 1993, back in 93, that cops were creating crack and selling it to people. And to this day, we're talking more than 30 years later, those convictions were still on people's records is outrageous. And I'm glad that Florida did the right thing. But at the same time, I'm disappointed that we don't have an outrageous conduct defense to this kind of behavior by the government. Okay, have a lovely Monday. I will see you first thing tomorrow morning.